think it can easily be said I have the worst GI system in the world. Easily. Like, no doubt about it. I don't know what it is. It's probably like my diet, honestly. Or it's just my makeup. The way my body functions. Jesus Christ, man. I can eat extremely healthy for a week, 2 weeks, a month, 2 months. I can eat like super healthy for a long time. And then the moment I put something in my body that's like relatively not good for me, my body just shuts off. It like freaks out. It can't sleep. It wakes up and it has to like shit every 10 minutes. It makes so much noise. Like, my girlfriend can hear it. Taylor can hear it just like sitting next to me. And it like it's mentally exhausting. I have no idea why it's like that, but it's if I eat bad the night before and I wake up, it's done. I can't even. I just fart all day. I'm like a farting machine. But yeah, guys. So welcome to episode 105. That's how we're going to kick it off this episode. As you could tell, energy's a little bit lower today. Reason being, didn't really work out this morning. I'm super self-conscious about my body, which I think I've talked about plenty of times here on this podcast. But I think, like, for me, it's worse than it is for most people. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe that's just, like, my selfish brain kicking in right there. But, like, I hate, like, so when I run super early in the morning. Like, I've been getting up. I'm still running a lot. Like, I know I've talked about it before on the podcast, but I'm still running usually 5 to 6 days a week right now. My weight's hovering between 197 to 200. So it's pretty high. I think in the world of running, I think 200 pounds is pretty heavy to be running. I'm not too sure. Let me know if that makes sense at all. But I feel like 200 pounds is pretty heavy in general. 200 pounds is heavy, but I think it's even heavier if you're doing like semi long distance running. And my running's not that long. I do at least 3.2 miles, so I do at least a 5K every time. The most I usually go up is about 8 miles. I've done 12 miles before, or no, 10 miles before. I think it was 10. It could have been 12. But I usually go between 3.2 to 8 miles. And 200 pounds, I feel like it's pretty heavy to be running. But either way, I feel good on it. I'm doing like between 8:30 and a 9:15 average mile. Obviously, the shorter distance I go, my benchmark is try to do a sub 27 5K every time I run. Especially if I'm going out just to do 3.2 miles, I try to keep it under 27 minutes, which I know isn't a great time. I know, like, I think like a decent time if you're a runner is like under 21 minutes or something like that. It might even be below that. It might even be like under 18 minutes. But I know I won't be able to get that for a long time, at least until my weight gets under 190. I want to get down to like 185. What I eventually really want to do is I want to do a marathon. I really do. Like, that's my ultimate goal, is to do a marathon. And I don't even know what a good marathon time is. I know it's like a few hours, obviously. Like if I average a 10-minute mile for 20 miles, that's, 200 minutes. That's 3 hours and 20 minutes plus 6 more miles. That'd be, 260 minutes, 10 minutes a mile, 12, 24, 4 hours and 20 minutes. So it'd be like a 4 hour, 20 minute, so I guess like a sub 4.5 hour marathon's good. Like, I can't even fathom the idea of running 4.5 hours right now. So like the idea of going and doing that right now is absurd. But I would love to do it eventually. Like, I kind of don't like the idea of me dying and not ever, like being on my deathbed and not knowing I ran a marathon. It's something that I definitely don't want to do. I want to go out there and eventually do it. So what I was trying to get at before I completely went sidetracked right there was I was talking about my stomach. So when I wake up, I get right out of bed. I'm usually up around between 5:15 and 5:30, and I'm on the road running by between 5:45 to 6. I don't really do anything before I run. I walk like a tenth of a mile, like not much at all. The only reason why I'm walking is because I'm just getting my phone set up. Like I'm setting up to the music I want. I'm setting up, kind of mentally preparing for the path I want to run. Thinking about my stride length and everything, where I want to place my arms, getting my map set up on my phone. Because right now I'm using Under Armour Map Tracker. So it's an app on the iPhone, obviously. And I have like a ring on my phone. Like, a lot of people have like a pop stopper or the thing that holds up your phone. I have like a medieval ring that I put my finger through. So I just kind of keep my phone in my right hand. And then I put my shirt in my left hand once I take it off. But I'm going to eventually get an Apple Watch so I can actually track my miles and track my speed. Because what I've noticed is the longer I run, once I get up to like 1.5 to 2 miles, my arm, like my right arm, where I put the my phone, it starts getting sore. And then when it gets sore, my body starts leaning over a little bit. So then I have to switch it up and then put my phone in my other arm. But then my other arm gets sore. And it's just something that I don't want to have to pay attention to at all. So getting an Apple Watch, hopefully in September. And then I should be able to, it will take a lot of pressure off of my my arms. But so the reason why I do get worried when I eat too much is because when I'm running, I like to take off my shirt when I run, because I like to get a tan too. But if there's a certain weight that if it's like 200 pounds, if I wake up at 200 pounds, I just feel like I'm 250 pounds instead of 200 pounds, because I think I bloat so much. My stomach just bloats up so much, and I look awful and I feel awful. Maybe I don't look as bad, but I feel terrible inside. So that's like one thing that's I have been doing. I have been running a lot more lately. It's been really fun. It's been obviously during the lockdown. I got into a few things, and that was one of the things I've gotten into, and I thoroughly enjoy it. It's so fun. I was talking to someone at the gym about it. It's like a runner's high. It's a real thing. It's something I'd never even fathom. Like going to the gym now just to lift weights, I just don't sweat as much, and I just don't have nearly as much fun. And I'm not like hating on lifting weights. Obviously, I still lift weights because not so much because I want to look like I lift weights, but because I know it's so healthy for your body to lift weights for long-term health and for immediate health, and also because it does feel good and it increases your testosterone. It makes you feel strong, and I think that's a good mental and physical thing to have. But when you run, there's the satisfaction of the heart rate just goes through the roof. When you're done, you can look at these numbers. I love looking at the numbers so much, of seeing how many miles you ran, what was your average time, what was your fastest mile, what was your elevation when you're running, what part of the mile was your fastest pace. There's just so many things that I love about running right now. Whereas when I'm weight training, you can obviously program, but I've programmed so much. I've been programming for like 7 years. I've been lifting out on weights, which isn't that long, but for me, it's not that long, but it's been like the same thing day in and day out. So it's just nice to switch it up, find something that is a little bit different and that I'm starting to feel a passion for. But when I'm done with it, I just feel amazing. I feel amazing for like the rest of the day. The rest of the day, I feel skinnier. I feel like I look better. The one thing that is kind of funny though, is I was going into it like making jokes about how I want to look like a runner. Like I want like runner's legs and stuff like that. Just kind of making jokes, not really wanting that, obviously. And also, I don't think my body is capable of getting to that figure. even though I am pretty tall, I'm just a wider person, so I don't think I can get skinny in like the torso area. But one thing that is kind of ironic is people having commenting on my legs. I think a lot there it is right there. My stomach it's like talking right now. It's maybe because the shorts I'm wearing. Like literally for the past month, every single day I've worn the same shorts. I have 4 different pairs, but they're like New Balance running 5-inch seam shorts. It's all I wear anymore. I haven't touched my underwear drawer for over a month now. Too much information. You didn't need to know that, but that's why this podcast exists. So I can share you that valuable information that nobody needs to hear. But it's funny because people are like, man, you look skinnier, your legs, like they look huge, which is hilarious because in my head, they've gotten so much tinier. I think they just kind of they're more toned lately. They're just toned. They might be a little bit skinnier, but they just feel more toned. But anyways, I digress. I spent the first 10 minutes just talking to you guys about running and my legs. I don't know why people listen to this podcast at all. I think I understand. I think it's because there's nothing else to do, or maybe you guys just enjoy it. But I mean, I listen to podcasts and I sit there listening to them, and I'm like, what am I even like getting out of it? And it's nothing except for just entertainment. It's like having someone else in the room just talking at you. It's kind of cool. It's almost like story time. But I wanted to give a big thank you to everybody who's been leaving reviews on the podcast. We just hit 300 Apple Podcast reviews. And they're not just like good podcasts, like the podcast, keep up the podcast. They're like funny, interesting, constructive, beautiful pieces of feedback from everybody. There we go. Smelling water all over my shirt. But I just want to take a second out of this podcast to say thank you to everyone who has been taking the time out of their day to leave me a rating on the podcast. It really is. I literally say this every single episode, but I mean it every single episode. I love doing this. I love putting out videos. I love thinking of subject ideas. I have a note section on my phone that's just filled up of ideas. And I've said those before. I always am thinking about when I want to post it, how I want to post it, what clips I want to take, new pieces of equipment, who I should have on the podcast, if I want to have anybody on the podcast, if I should change up the studio, which I'm thinking about getting a new table here soon. Taylor and I have kind of been talking about it back and forth lately, but I just love doing it. And don't take this the wrong way, but it requires no effort. Like, it requires the minimum amount of effort because of what I wanted it to be. What I wanted it to be was just the Collab Show, just somewhere I talk and people listen, just like a conversation. And that's what it's kind of become. And it's become that because 300 people have taken the time out of the day to leave it a review, because people have taken the time to click it on Spotify, click it on YouTube, like the YouTube videos, watch the podcast on Apple, on Spotify, on Google Podcast, follow the Instagram page, say things. Like, I had somebody up yesterday come up to me in the gym and just mentioned that he liked the podcast. And it's stuff like that. It's things like that make it all worth it. You know, let's be honest here. If no one listens to it, why would you continue doing it? Clearly something clearly it's not working, but it keeps on growing. We're literally doubling each month, and I can't do that without the support of everybody out there. And it's been over a year now, and it's everything I've wanted and then some, and it's proven that, and it's beautiful, and it's organic, and I am very thankful for all the continued support. And not all the podcasts are good. Not all of them are the same. Some of them are high energetic. Some of them are low energetic, like this one today, and I think that's what makes them unique. That's what I like about them, is that they're not professionals. They're not like done professionally. I mean, they're good, like quality, camera, all that good stuff, but they're not. I'm not here trying to do a TV show with $1 million budget. I'm here doing a podcast with the $500 college kid budget, So I hope you guys continue to support. I will continue to post, and I am very thankful for that. But a few things I want to talk about real quick. I finished the last podcast talking about how you guys are listening to this on Thursday. I'm recording it on Tuesday. So Juice Wrld released an album 5 days ago. And I didn't listen to it. His music comes out on Fridays. I didn't listen to it until Monday. And when I started listening to it, it was consistent. It was on my runs. It was working out. It was driving in the car. It was sitting in the house. It was everywhere. Everywhere I was listening to it. And there was a few times where I was listening to it and I felt myself choking up and crying. I don't speak about music too much here, like too much on this podcast, but I do listen. So the music I listen to I listen to pretty much, I don't want to say everything because I don't really listen to bluegrass. I don't really listen to jazz too much. I do listen. I guess I do listen to jazz when I'm reading my book. But I don't listen to everything. I listen to everything that's like in America, I guess, like the popular genres. I listen to country music. I listen to rock and roll, modern day rock and roll, 80s, 60s, 70s, 90s, nothing really past the 50s, pop, Michael Jackson, modern day pop, hip hop. I love R&B. So I guess I listen to all that music. And when Juice Wrld was alive, I used to listen to all his songs, because there's something about his music that just hits it. It's very melodic. It's almost like it's hip hop, but it sounds a little bit like R&B sometimes, but like rapping R&B. His voice sounds like an R&B singer, but his words hit you like a poet almost. He is an artist. I think there's a few real artists out there, like Post Malone is an artist. He can sing, he can write, he performs. I never saw Juice Wrld. I don't really go to concerts, but I have friends that went and they said he was an artist. So I listened to all his music and all of it was amazing. I think he goes down in our generation as one of the greatest ever. I really do believe that, especially in the hip hop world, in the rap world. And he seemed like a good person. So when he passed away, it was, it was horrible. I think it was like December, right? I think it was December. It was a shock. It was a shocking event, and it was overdosing on drugs. Kind of the way that most young people are going out these days is through the use of drugs, Xanax, opioids, not like weed anymore. It's like hardcore pill prescription drugs. It's depressing. It's sad. It's disgusting. And it's a real pandemic. Say what you want about coronavirus. That's here, whatever. But you can survive coronavirus. If you get deep into drugs, opioids, you can survive it a few times, but if you don't get immediate help, and if you don't ever find a place to love yourself and help yourself, you won't survive it. It's like a cancer. It grows inside of you and it will take over your body. We all know people. I have friends, family. We're all, it affects everybody. It affects everybody. And it's the pandemic that nobody speaks about. And I'm going to say something might be kind of offensive. It might be offensive, but I think it's very truthful. And I think sometimes offensive things are truthful. And I think sometimes they don't want to be listened to because there's so much of the truth that people don't want to face it. But drugs in this country, they don't they've always affected the poor. Black, white, Hispanic, they always affect the poor. And the reason why they affect the poor is lack of knowledge of what they are, lack of resources to get actual help, lack of a family environment to turn to when things start hitting the fan. And I know for me, I live right near, I used to work in a place where there's a heavy use of heroin. There's a heavy use of opioids. And it wasn't a poor area. It wasn't a poor area at all. But it wasn't the wealthiest area either. It's middle class. It was lower to middle class. It was middle class. And you see people strung out. You see people strung out. But there's no real system out there to take care of them, to help them, to tell them to stop. And it's sad to see because it's a real pandemic. And it makes the coronavirus look like it's nothing. I mean, I drive to one of my favorite coffee shops, Rise Up Coffee, down in the city I'm talking about. And there's a sign. There's a sign, a police sign. It's funded by the local police department, and it puts up 2020 total deaths, and it's all heroin overdoses. Heroin overdoses 2020, blah blah blah. It says the number, and then it says like year to date. I think it has a previous year, then it has year to date, so that would be this year, and it's just a crazy number. It's like 70 or 80 people. So each year there's hundreds of people dying, and that's overdoses that result in a death. Oh, no. This is what it has. It has 2020 overdoses, and then it has 2020 overdose deaths. And you can see the overdoses is like 300 plus, and the deaths are like, hundreds, like, in the 100, between 80 to 150. And it's a cycle that is never kicked. And it's a cycle that's never spoken about. And then coronavirus comes around, and I'm not taking away from coronavirus. It's a virus. But it seems like pandemics, real pandemics like heroin, like drugs, it's never spoke about because it doesn't affect the people who are super wealthy, the people who are super rich. And I'm not too sure. I could be out of pocket speaking upon that, but I feel like the people that I know who have been affected by it severely, they're not the richest people in the world, and I feel like once things affect the rich people, the people who bring in a lot of money, then it's a big deal. That's what coronavirus did. It affected everything. It affected supply chains. It affected the economy. It affected the stock market. It affected people who make a lot of money. Therefore, it's on their radar. Therefore, they care. And it's sad. It's unethical. It's wrong. Because there's a real issue going across the entire country. Coronavirus didn't really affect Montana, didn't really affect South Dakota, didn't really affect Wyoming. But guess what does affect South Dakota, North Dakota, Wyoming, and Montana? Meth, heroin. People are strung out all day long. They have coronavirus that will kill them. It's not a 0.001% chance of death like coronavirus is. It's a flip of the coin of someone's life, and it's across the whole country, it's across the whole country, and people don't talk about it because it doesn't affect the rich, and it's disgusting. And a lot of it comes from prescription drugs. You get hurt, you go to the hospital, you get prescribed whatever it is, some type of painkiller. Your prescription runs out. You enjoy that high. You want to get that high, but you can't get on the prescription again because you don't need it anymore. Cut you loose. Weeks go by and you miss that high. You have no one there around you to help you, to tell you don't do that. Next thing you know, you're in a sketchy part of town looking for heroin. You're doing something that you would have never done before. You're looking for heroin. You're doing heroin. You're behind the dumpster. You're dying. It's sad. It's sad. And so what I was trying to say is it made me, when I was listening to the Juice Wrld album, it made me go, drugs don't care about your income. They just don't. I mean, Juice Wrld was wealthy, but he was fighting a lot of demons. And some of the songs, one of the songs specifically, let me pull it up here. Wishing Well. That song was brutal. It was brutal because it he was predicting his death. He said, what did he say? So if these drugs don't kill me, let me look it up here. I can see the lyrics. Sometimes you use my past for my memories, speaking of the devil, so I'm just going to feel. Yeah, he says this right here. This is Wishing Well. This is a song that made me cry, and I listened to it with Taylor, and I cried again. It goes something like this, and I can't sing it. I hopefully I don't get a strike just for saying it. But it's from the Juice Wrld album, Wishing Well. Legends Never Die. That's the name of the song. Wishing Well, album's Legends Never Die. Artist is Juice Wrld. The lyric is, if it wasn't for the pills, I wouldn't be here. But if I keep taking these pills, I won't be here. And it sounds so, stupid, that I'm it doesn't sound stupid because it's a representation of this generation and all the generations ever. Humans will try drugs because it's an escape from reality, and humans by nature, humans specifically by nature, there's this idea of death. It takes over our world. It takes over our world so much that from a young age, our parents try to stunt it on us. They try to tell you about this place heaven, they try to tell you about this place hell. And so as a kid, you're always confused because you want to believe in it, but since you're a human, it's hard for you to grasp the idea of heaven and hell because it's not concrete. And as a human, you will challenge that thought process. And so there's this idea of death, and we never know what death is, but subconsciously, death takes over our brain every day. Every day, death is scary for a lot of people. For everybody, it's scary. And we don't know what it is. And the reason why we do anything in this world is because it's there. So it's this weird, powerful dynamic that we live through every day. And before we get to death, we live a life that can feel like a drag sometimes. And you want to escape. You want to hop out of it. It's like why do men drive so recklessly on the highway? And why do you not see women do it as much? Well, men they push boundaries. The same reason why you see a boy and a girl as a kid, a 2-year-old girl versus a 2-year-old guy, you put them in a room together, the guy's going to take everything and rip it all apart, put shit on the wall, pee in the corner. The girl most likely won't do that. Why? Because there's a different set of developments in their brains. One wants to test the boundaries. Girls usually don't like to do that from a young age, and obviously you have your exceptions, but overall that's how it is. So you see guys, and I'm a guy, so I'm speaking from my perspective. And if I'm making statements that are too blanketed, then I apologize, but this is from my experience. You see guys, they're very reckless. They're very reckless because they want to escape the reality. They want to push the boundaries to a breaking point. And then once they get to the breaking point, they want to actually break down the fucking wall. And that wall is their life. That wall is their life. And you're taught that there's things that are important in this world, such as an income, such as a job, such as your physical appearance to a certain point. Well, what happens when you get the money? You check that box off. What happens when you get the car, you check that box off. What happens when you get the amazing family, you check that box off? You know, what happens when you get the six-pack abs and you check that box off? What happens when you get the amazing job? You're a doctor, you're a heart surgeon, you're a brain surgeon, and you check that box off. But you're still that boy ripping shit out of drawers and off of shelves. Because you haven't filled up that gap. Because that gap is so just, it's chaotic, you know? And drugs fill that gap. Why? Because you don't have to focus on that gap. You don't have to fix that gap. You don't have to put yourself in a responsible situation. You don't have to find responsibility within yourself. You don't have to take charge of yourself. You don't have to talk to yourself. You don't have to make sure, Michael, are you doing well today? How are you? I'm doing well. I could do better here. You don't have to do that when you're using drugs. It's an escape. It's an escapism. It's that's what it is. You know, and it's sad. And that's why I cried when I heard that song. Because it's so not a question. It's, I'm going to die if I don't take these drugs. If I do take these drugs, I'm going to die. Each one is an accepted result. And it's sad. It's a beautiful album, though. It says beautiful shit, but it's scary and it's eye-opening, and I hope he can save a lot of people. I think he will save a lot of people. He can't glorify it, and he's not glorifying it. He's telling people it's terrible. It's a bad thing. And I understand there's a lot of stuff going on right now between coronavirus, between the tension between different groups and equality, and I get it, between the elections coming up. I understand. You know, I understand the fear people have. I understand the hatred people have towards our president, people have towards their family members who believe in a certain thing, who, you know, just people who wear a MAGA hat. People hate that. There's a lot of hate going on. And I honestly believe it's very, I don't think it's ironic. I think this is just how the equation works. In a time that we're living in right now, where hatred towards the opposite side is so high, is also lines up with the time where people are farthest disconnected, or most disconnected from themselves. I think that's an equation that adds up to each other. The more you forget to stabilize your inner self, the more hatred you're going to have towards other people. And I think that is something that we all need to kind of shake the snow globe up and figure out how to adjust that before we start trying to adjust other people. But yeah, I don't know. I do know this is a short podcast, and I wasn't going to go that long today. I've accepted that if I'm not going to just make a 40-minute podcast because that's what I've normally done. 30-minute podcast is all I can do today. Just wasn't, the energy level isn't as high today. It's because I didn't run or anything. I haven't worked out. I got a shower. I feel like shit. I feel disgusting. My weight's high. That's probably it. But thank you, everybody who's been supporting it. Thank you, everyone who has been coming up to me in person, telling me they enjoy it. Thank you to everyone who's been watching on YouTube. Thank you, everyone who's been just being there during this whole process. We're going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. You're going to be okay. I love you guys. I love you girls. It's weird to say, but I love everybody out there who watches the podcast. I will catch you guys in episode 106. Please have a safe weekend. Stay safe. Stay indoors. Put a mask on just because it helps. I've already spoken on that, but listen to the Juice Wrld album if you haven't yet. I love you guys. Peace out.